Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the Exploring Coaching Mastery with myself, Peter J. Redding. Today, we're going to be jumping right into the actual coaching session, the ongoing coaching session. I've been talking now for weeks, actually months, in preparation for this particular session, because all the other previous ones was getting ready for being a professional coach, understanding of conduct, the code of ethics, understanding the competencies of a professional coach and what makes professional coaching, frankly, different than any other coaching modality or helping modality. So today we get into what do we do on an ongoing basis to prepare ourselves as a professional coach and to support our client to go there ready to discuss, explore, make commitments to, and basically go through their own development. So let me get my screen here with my PowerPoint, and that will do that. And I'm here. All right. Love it when a plan comes together. So series 4, episode number 11, the weekly or the ongoing coaching session, because ongoing, it doesn't have to be weekly. It could be every other week. It could be once a month. It could be something on a fairly regular basis. But let's call it a weekly coaching session. It's the ongoing coaching session. Yeah. All right. And let me get over to this. So, this is all preparation, week number 11, the weekly coaching. We're going to finish up the series number 4 next week with the completion, the last session that you have with a client in the coaching engagement that has been prearranged, as we've talked about again in previous sessions, for 12 sessions, 2 months or 3 months or 6 months or a year, whatever that engagement was defined as originally. When we come up to the last one, we'll talk about how do you do a professional of that engagement. But this week, let's talk about the ongoing ones. And like I keep on saying ongoing, that there may be 12 of these sessions over the course of 3 months. There may be 24 of these if you're doing them every other week during the year. So this same outline that we're going to be talking about today will be repeated, hopefully for a long time that you're supporting a client. So what's inside of this? How do I prepare as a professional coach? How do I greet the client, clear the client, connect the client? What does all that mean? That all probably takes place in the first 2 minutes of the coaching session. Getting the client's agenda for today's session. The difference between questioning and we're going to explore the difference between questioning and exploring today. Also making observations. There's a lot of coaching, even young coaches that say, okay, I can only ask, well, yeah, it's mostly questions, but there's also at the more professional level, the more advanced level of coaching, the coach is responsible and built into the competence that we have been crafting now for 25 years at the International Coaching Federation. Also making up as a professional coach. And so how do we distinguish that from giving advice? We'll get into that today. Closing the session. How do we professionally? Because we're not going to be able to handle everything in this person's life in a half an hour or an hour or even 2 hours, whatever your length of your sessions are. So how do we close that session? And then finally, kind of a wrap up on, what kind of client files do I keep? Note taking do I take that as a that you'll want to do on a regular basis. So have a methodology to do that. If we have time for some Q&A at the end, we'll do that as well. All right, so welcome aboard. Prep. Get the client file out and get it ready. I mean, it sounds, innocent and kind of obvious, but don't panic at the last minute. Is calling in and you as a coach are not ready, not cool, not professional. So have the client file out and ready. I review that file, last notes. What happened last time? What were some of the things perhaps that the client may want to have followed up in this session? Again, client's prerogative. But for me to be ready to have that sense of continuity with this particular client at this particular part of their journey is I'm really talking about here. The next thing I do very consciously is switch to a coaching mindset. I have lots of other mindsets in my life. Mindset as a business owner. I have a mindset as a partner in life. I have a mindset as a brother. I have a mindset as a hobbyist. And so whatever I'm engaged in that particular time of my day or my week, I come to it with a different mind. So I'm very conscious of switching that, all those other things, frankly, off as best I can, or setting them aside, and switching to a coaching mindset is saying, this is all about the client. I'm here to support my client. I am here to not give advice to my client. I'm not here to direct my client. They know what's best for them. And that's the space that I want to get into to be able to support that, partner with them to do that. That's the next piece of this then that I have up there is center myself, get myself right, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and then empty myself of Peter Redding strategies, empty myself of an executive mindset strategies that I can hearken back to because I've had lots of experience in that arena, but empty myself of even all of that. And the corollary or the reciprocal of the emptying myself is to fill myself up with the essence of my client. And in the next series 5, we're going to be talking about core self-tech and how do we support an individual to know who they really are. And that's what I fill up with. So if you want to stay tuned for series 5, we're going to go into that in massive detail over the maybe 5, 6, even 7 weeks of talking about how does an individual, how do I as a professional coach support my client to know who they really are as opposed to who they've been told who they are. Huge difference. And a major difference in terms of their decision making, what's best for them, what's best for their life, what's best for the planet. So I can empty myself like a vessel, and pour out of me all of the Peter Redding strategies for life and beliefs and all to be that space for my client to come into to explore for themselves what's best for them. Okay, hope that makes sense. And be ready to receive the call or the Zoom link or whatever, however the connection is that you're doing with the client. Actually be ready to pick up the phone, hit the button on your cell phone, Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, whatever you're using, but have it all ready. Earbuds in place. I'm ready. I'm 100% ready. So when they do make that connection, I can greet them immediately and they have a sense of, oh, Peter's ready. Yeah, because he's a professional. All right. Again, simple things, but important. Have a little checklist if you want in front of you so that you can, for me, it takes probably 3 minutes to do this. now that I've been doing it for 25 years, when I allowed myself 15 or 20 minutes to go through that list that we just talked about. So you get better at it. Clear, empty yourself more. All right. Let's go. Greet, clear, connect. This is just a little formula that I created, frankly, or Coach for Life did. You're not going to see those kind of words necessarily in the ICF competencies, but it's, friendly hello. Hey, great to hear your voice. How you doing? Is there anything for you we say clear, or another way of saying this is for you to be fully present. Anything to be fully present. They may be finishing up an email. They may be finishing up a text. They may need to close the door. They may need to refresh their water. They may set things aside, take the animals out of the room for the next half an hour or an hour, whatever that is. Again, and I don't go through that checklist for them. I just ask them, is there anything that you need to do for yourself so that you can be 100% present for our time today together? And in the early stages of a coaching engagement, they may not be ready because they are brilliant multitaskers. They've got 6 things right now. They're catching up on emails. They're texting somebody else. They're rearranging an appointment for later today. They've got something in the household with one that they have the responsibility now, particularly in the COVID days where they are working from home. They're trying to scramble to find their notes from the last coaching session that they can't find. I mean, just all kinds of things going on. So what do you need to do to be fully present? And they take, as a engagement continues, this gets more and more streamlined because they know that that's going to be part of the questions that I ask them up front, and they do that ahead of time. A lot of them do. So they go, no, cleared, cleared my space, closed the door. I got my notepad here, all set and ready to go, Peter. Okay, super. Now, the next one is connection or grounding. What I mean by this is the most basic one here, I'll give it to you right now, is, let's just take 3 deep breaths together. Just to, be full. Let's take just 3 deep breaths together. Now, as you get more advanced in coaching, you're going to be asked to ask the client what their choice is throughout the whole session from beginning to end. So it's really good practice to start off with, I know that in the past, you've asked to do a grounding exercise with you that supports you to, get connected to your most resourceful self. Would you like to do that, or would you like me to facilitate that today? You're ready to jump right into the session today. Okay, so give them the choice. My experience is that when the client does take the opportunity to be grounded, particularly back to their original self, okay, which again keeps coming back to core self for me, and the core selfie that we're going to be doing in series 5, they get more done. Even if they're an A-type personality, even if they are, let's just dive right into it. I got all kinds of, I don't have time to do any breathing today. Quite literally. It's like, isn't that a sad statement? So there's a bit of an agenda here, and I'll cut, and it's in service of the client to go deeper and get more done. So for those of you that are A-type personalities and time is much to it, spend the first 2 minutes going through greet, clear, connect. Yeah. The next 28 minutes will produce more things getting done, greater clarity, greater conviction to what they commit to because of this. Yeah, cannot overemphasize that. Okay. As you're getting questions, by the way, I'm type them into Facebook, and my virtual assistant will translate those and get those over to me in a place on my screen here that I can read those. Or if you're in the Zoom inner circle and there's no time lag in this one, then you can just type them into the chat box directly. But I encourage you to do that. Hopefully we'll get to those before the end of the session. Serenia says, I asked the client to breathe with me and say together, today I will love myself and give myself the gift of possibilities before each session. Lovely. Yeah. There's 1,000 different ways of doing this connection and supporting the client. My preference is the client's words. But if it's affirmative and uplifting and supportive of their resourcefulness, hip hip. And like I say, there's 1,000 different ways of doing that. You could ask them what their favorite poem is or their favorite quote, right? When it pops in my mind, if I'm the client and my coach says, what's your favorite quote, Peter? It'd be Oscar Wilde's, be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Because that's just me. And so that might be something that my coach could do for me if they didn't have the more sophisticated core self information about the client, their core values, their life, natural gifts and talents. That for me is kind of the mother lode, the gold streak of connection with my client. But absent of that, there's again 1,000 different ways to do that connection. Yeah, super duper. Okay, and moving on. Let's move. Getting a client's agenda. Now, this guy comes right out of ICF PCC markers. This is not my language. Maybe generalize this in a little bit, but basically 3.1, 3.2, 3.4 are right out of the PCC markers. And so the International Coaching Federation for these. And this is creating an agreement for the client for this particular session, this one today, for our next 27 now together. If it's a 30-minute session to begin with, and I've spent 3 minutes of the meet, greet, connect, right? What do you want to accomplish in this or in our session today? Another way of saying it. Now, I hear a lot of coaching. I mean, I hear thousands of people coach because of what I do as a trainer, professional coach, mentor. And a lot of them will start off, what do you want to talk about today? What's on your mind? That it's perfectly good question. Get to what do they want to actually accomplish today? So if they start off and you ask them, what do you want to talk about? Then they can talk for probably 12 minutes and I still don't know what they want to say. The more professional way is to ask them right up front, what do you want to accomplish? And they still might talk in generalities. Well, all kinds of on with my daughter and stuff's going on at work and we're trying to get back into a physical office now after so many months of being away from that. And there's head of HR, or I'm head of facilities, and it's just I'll get all kinds of things bouncing around in my head right now, and they could go on about that for 6 minutes, right? So even if that is the case, at the end of that, I'm going to say, okay, so out of all of that, and I hear that there's a lot of stuff going on, what specifically do you want to accomplish in our time together today? I keep coming back to 3.1 until it is narrowed down to the point that I know what the client is wanting to focus for this session. Once that's in place, I'm going to go even further in 3.2 and ask, so how will you know that you accomplished 3.1 what you just 3.1 in 3.1 by the end of this session. So this is not, eventually 3 months from now, things will settle down. We'll get people to the physical office space. Okay, I get that. And I'm going to ask you one more time. What specifically do you want to leave the session with today in terms of planning, if that's what the client had said? If I could just figure out a plan or the next 3 steps or the authorizations that are going to be required or I need to do it through whatever they came up with, right? The specificity of that one item. How will you know that you accomplish that by the end of our session? Okay, and that is what they said in 3.1, not the 3-month plan or the 6-month plan or a year from now I want to start my plan, or 3 years from now I want to make sure that there's enough money in the bank for my kids' college education. Wow, that's fantastic. I applaud you for that and that forward thinking. And what part of that do you want to accomplish in today's session? Again, back to 3.1. It's very, very, and it's meant to be specific. The research has said that when a coach establishes 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, more stuff gets done in the coaching session than if you don't do it. So a lot of young coaches say, I don't know how I can do a coaching session in 30 minutes. I always talk to my clients for an hour and a half consistently. It's part of it is that it's not a well-defined conversation to begin with. And this helps establish that. 3.3, what is the significance, the relevance, the importance to be able to walk away, again, what they've just shared in now 3.2, an hour from now. I'm assuming now that the coaching session is an hour long, so we're at the 56-minute mark of completing, right? We're 4 minutes into an hour session. So what's the significance of being able to do this piece of work in our next minutes together? And you don't have to say 55 minutes. I'm just using that as a reference, but it's also a reference to, I am the one that's keeping track of time. So I spread it in. I don't beat them over the head with it. I may mention, time once going through all of these 3.1 through 3.4. But it's not, especially if you have someone that likes to talk and has not been listened to this way ever. So the significance of doing, to having a 3.1 or the first 3 steps and getting people back to a physical location for me would be it would relieve my mind. It would give me a direction. It would let me know that the people or the agencies that I need to make sure that me or my staff are checking in with to make sure that we are, doing things properly for the reentry of people working in a closer proximity. Again, whatever that significance or relevance is to that individual. The reason we do this one, by the way, if they get stuck or confused or overwhelmed or, the attitude of, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm afraid that I'm going to screw it up. And I do that. I don't want to jeopardize people's lives, obviously. Ooh, I get the relevance of that, the import of that. And I also heard at the beginning that it's important for you because you want to keep people safe when they do come back. So what's your next step? What do you need to do? Who do you need to be? Okay, and I go right back into having them solve the issue or issues that are related to today's agenda. Yeah. 3.4 is now this is worded differently than the IC that this is, asking if there's anything that's going to get in the way of being able to achieve what they want to achieve that they've just described in, 3.2. I've that, or I come at it from a different angle. Coach for Life, we tend to look at what's working first, kind of an appreciative inquiry or positive psychology, or, a place of strength as opposed to a place of, what's going to get in the way. So the way I say this and teach my students is, what strengths could support you to accomplish, again, whatever I said in 3.2 for this session, today's session, by the end of this session. Okay. And they look at their strengths, which they have now, which we've gone through in the session, or in a course self-discovery process. And they have their natural gifts and talents, their God-given strengths, their natural talents to go back to. I use just one of mine that pops in my head. Connecting the dots is one for me. Yeah, I could use connecting the dots of, there's going to be a logical progression of what I need to do to accomplish coming up with a 3-point plan by the end of our session today. Super. All right, and then we get into it. All right, but don't go into the rest of the session until 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4 are established, so that I, coach, professionally am partnering with my client to help them achieve what they are here to work on, what they're here to achieve, what they're here to walk away with. And it's really hard to do that job if I don't know what they want to do, what they want to walk away with. Yeah. Can a client's unsettled state be a coaching moment? Asking questions like, what is prompting the same? Absolutely. But I don't get into that until 1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4. It's like, unless that's the topic of the conversation. If I can say, what do you want to accomplish? And they can say, I am just muddled. I am just beside myself. I am, and using your words, unsettled in my professional career and where I stand. I haven't been in physical proximity of my boss in a year and a half. And a reasonably good relationship back then, and whatever, again, they get into their story. But I then will check 3.1 is the area that you want to accomplish in our time together today. Yes, this is the uppermost and up, top of mind. All right. Super. Okay. So I can understand that there might be a lot of elements to this. What specifically do you want to walk away with that that you've been able to have a better approach, better plan, better mindset in reestablishing that relationship with your boss? Let them answer that, and again, unsettled. That's totally okay. But go through the same process. Put them through the same 4 questions, so that they can come to a conclusion, a strategy. And it might not be a doing thing. It could be a confidence thing, by the way, in all of these things. So you don't have to get them down to, what do you want to do? 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 It may be, how do you want to at the end of our session today? What level of confidence? If you're on a scale of 1 to 10 confidence now, you ask them that, and they'll say 3. Or I'm muddled, on a scale of 1 to 10, how muddled or unsettled are you? Pretty low ebb. Okay. Or being able to, probably I'd give myself a 2.5. All right. So where do you want it to be? I like to be at least by a 7 by the end of our session today. Okay. How would you know that it's at a 7? Again, I keep going back to this framework so that I can support them. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Questions. Mostly open-ended, mostly one at a time, hopefully all the time. When a coach gets muddled, especially a new coach or getting into this profession, they're not quite sure what question to ask, so they'll ask 4 or 5 questions in a row. We call stacked questions. Like what do you want to talk about first? And I also heard that you wanted to talk about this, and there's also this going on in your life. Is that something that you'd like to explore today in our session? And on and on. So they get like 4. It just confuses the client, frankly. Ask one at a time, open-ended. Practice start using open questions wherever you are. They start with what, who, how, when, as opposed to don't you think, or would it be good if you, those, I don't care what, that's a closed-end question. Don't you think? You've just helped direct traffic. So, you maybe need to do that in parts of your life. That's why that mindset up front is really, really important. I'm a coach here. I ask open-ended questions. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trying to prosecute somebody. Isn't it true that you violated this individual? No. That's a yes or no question. Intentionally, the lawyers lead the client to the answer that they want them to answer. A coach does not do that. A coach is, so what's my first one? That's my go-to question. Even if you don't know, start with what? What? Yeah, what options have you considered so far? To what are the say I'm trying to be a what questioner, as opposed to well, there seems to be 3 approaches. Okay, and that's coming from me, not the client. I haven't heard that from the client yet, so that is not asking an opening question. That's a leading question or directive. The first 2 are really important here. The ICF, again, is very, very interested in not just asking what questions, but who questions. Who are you as a human being? Who do you want to be? Who do you need to be? When you're having this conversation or you're making a self-commitment to have a team meeting, who do you want to show up as? Not as a leader necessarily, but who do you want to show up with as a fellow human being? Digging deeper into that individual, not just the do, but also the be. All right, that's kind of the doing and the being combination. The how and the when can come in when they are starting to go through their self-commitments. Okay, so we've been talking about getting people back into a physical location. And it sounds like they've come up with, say, 3 action plan steps. So do you need support? Now, this is a yes or no question. It's towards the end, and it's okay. You're not going to get blasted by a lightning bolt. But would it be helpful for me to support you in terms of the how and the when? And no, I got that knocked, Peter. That's very clear in my head. Don't need to spend time doing that in our session today. Super, well done. Or they may come back and say, yeah, that'd be actually, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. And so I say, okay, so how do you want to go about doing this? Or when do you want to begin this? Or when do you need to hit specific milestones that you've discussed already earlier in our session? I can ask them the who and when questions again, as opposed to, well, obviously then you need to do, first, and this step second, and this step third, because that's my logical brain kicking in, not a coaching approach. Ask the client. how would you go about organizing this? When do you want to have this meeting with the boss, or when with the team, or with the facilities manager, or with or with whoever you need to consult? Okay. Questions are also responsive to what the client is talking about and responsive to their agenda. And I keep 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. You're going to be tired of me hearing that. But I can't be responsive to them if I don't know what it is that they want to get out of the session. So I'm responsive to their agenda, responsive to what they want to accomplish in this session. I also try to customize my question based on what I've learned about the client. So I learned things about the client from the first foundation session. Again, their core values, their life purpose. I might incorporate that into my questioning or my observations. And I also learned things about what they wanted, what they're talking about in this session. And so I use their words. So I can stay away. There are some general questions and they're just going to creep in, and it's just okay. But as much as I can, I'm going to say, rather than saying, okay, so how are you going to that you accomplish what you set out to accomplish by the end of a session? That's very generic. Okay. First of all, it's a great question, and it's open-ended. But to customize it, I'm going to try to use their words in terms of what they just shared with me, so they know specifically what I'm asking about. So how will you know that you, instead of saying this or that, how will you know that, how will you know you accomplished coming 3-point plan by the end of the session today? That's customized because that's what they just shared with me. I want to come up with a 3-point plan, Peter. Woo. Super. Great. And so how will you know that you, again, generic, how will you know you did that? Customize, how will you know that you have a 3-point plan? I'll have it written down. I'll have it articulated. Woo. Brilliant. Fantastic. That's customized. All right. There's lots. I mean, I could do probably another 6 hours on questioning, but due to time, we're going to move on. Exploring. So asking questions is a beginning of exploring. Exploring, though, goes deeper with the client to go deeper. Asking the client deeper questions. Partnering with the client to think differently. Exploring beliefs, energy, their beingness. Asking them things that they haven't asked themselves yet. So getting in this empty space. Okay, so let's empty Peter out of the vessel at the beginning that we talked about. Filling myself up with them and their beliefs, their values, their talents, their life purpose, their agenda for today, their agenda for the overall engagement, and have all of that accessible, and be in tune with their culture, be in tune with their ecosystem. That allows me as a professional coach to support them and partner with them in a whole deeper way. So what's the potential impact on your family? Going back to the example I've been using for the last half an hour, moving back into physical locations, getting all the employees back their office space. What are some of the potential impacts that this is going to have on you personally? That's going into this deeper, but it is in service to their agenda. it's in service to their desire to accomplish what they're here to accomplish today. I'm not making stuff up. I'm not just asking it because I'm personally curious about that. I too am dealing with maybe the same issue that they're dealing with. And so I'm trying to get their insights in terms of informing me about my plan. Not a This is 100% about the client, 100% about the client. And so, by the way, 100% about the client. So this is digging in deeper, and to the extent that they're ready, willing, and able to do that. So I'm not going to force it. And in fact, I might ask them if you're willing. I'd like, if it would support you, I'd ask you a couple of deeper questions here, or from maybe a different perspective that you haven't thought about yet. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be very helpful, Peter. Okay. Or not. We might get into some things that they feel very vulnerable about. Things that I don't even like saying things out loud to myself in the shower, and I'm they get that their shields shields up, Scotty. I got to protect myself, and I want to respect that, honor that, and not put them in going deeper if they're not ready to, and back off from it. And I don't make it, no, this is for your own good, just stick with me. Not my. So I really do want to honor that, and it helps to continue to build a deeper level of safety, maybe for something even that's more sensitive 3 weeks from now, or 2. I'm building up that level of safety with my client. So yes, professional coach is there. Not I'm comfortable. There are times when I'm going to be challenging them in the area of exploring things deeper, at a deeper level, and be ready to back off when they say, yeah, I've gone deep as I want to go in this one, Peter. I need to move on to the next topic. Absolutely right there with you. What's okay? Asking them. Really important, really important. All right, let's move on. Observe. This is again advanced skill, frankly, to be able to do this. It has to be done from a place of a coaching mindset. But I'm also, my antennae, I guess, plural, are up. What's going on with speech pattern? What's going on with energy? What's going on with what's maybe not said or dealt with? What is the client avoiding or potentially avoiding? Who is the client being in their doingness, their activity of I got to get stuff done? Who are they being? Are they being belligerent? Are they being unreasonable? Are they being judgmental? Themselves or others, perhaps? All in the service of the client's development and the client's agenda. This is not to make observation, embarrass them, or there's a judgment that's around that. You have some energy around something that's doing. Leave that out. The art of coaching comes in here to a great extent. This is not giving advice clandestinely. This is intuition when it's really a directive. Don't you think it would be better? I'm seeing you in a different perspective here about, maybe doing this from a standpoint of XYZ. And I'm going to call it clean observation. That's non-direct, is incredibly powerful for the coaching relationship. I'll give you one example here. Let's say they're talking about moving, and it's going to mean that their son that's in high school is going to have to leave his friends and the varsity team, or whatever sport you are in your country. that he just is loving. He's getting a lot out of it. And mom that's having the family move because of her professional position in the company. And she says, the most important thing here is my career, the family. I am the breadwinner. They basically don't have a voice in it, right? Mom and dad that lives with her, 3 kids old, maybe a spouse, maybe a partner that is there. But she's taking it on as this is all about me. It has to be. And it's for their best interest. I might come back with an observation as the coach and say, well, wow. And she's saying this, like, I have to be strong and I can't show any weakness because I don't want to yield to, any pushback from the family unit, basically. And I say, okay, so I hear that. And as just listening to this now, if I'm the son, I may hear this in a way that says she doesn't care about me. So when you hear that, what goes on for you? And I'm not vested in that being. I don't say right. I mean, I hear a lot of coaches. This is my observation. Right, like looking for approval that yes, I'm correct. I don't have to be correct. In fact, I want to even back off it further. This is an observation I might make if I'm hearing this from your son's perspective, and I could be way off here. Okay, so I take my little Velcro fingers off of being right, but in such a manner that allows her to think through that and go, huh. And she can react to it any way she wants. Yeah, that is fully a legitimate reaction that you're channeling here, Peter, for my son. But I still need to move. I still need to make this move for his welfare as well as the rest of the families. Okay. So is there anything else around this that you want to, present it that might be more compatible, or again, that's leading. So I would think about that before I ask that question, frankly. What, if anything, would change then with that realization? It'd be a much better way to approach it. And she can say, nope, I'm good. I'm strong. I'm going to say this is a fait accompli. Nobody else has a say in this. And trust me, it's going to be for your own interest and your good. Super. What's next? Okay. So that's an observation that supports the client to think about things from a different perspective based on a clean response from me. Yeah. Moving on. Okay. Closing the session. Closing this half an hour session or hour session or 45-minute session or hour and 15-minute session, whatever you've again with the client ahead of time. Ask the client what progress has been made. So you started off, you wanted to be able to go with a 3-point plan on how to move people back into the physical location. What progress have you made against that objective for this session today? Let's speak first. In the past, I would acknowledge them for all the things that I saw them do before I asked this question. And what I'm finding is by asking this question first, more powerful. It's much more powerful for them to go through the cognitive brain function of say what did I do? Okay, well, I figured this out. I've got a plan. I've got actually there's a couple of other things that came in as I was talking about it that came to light that I am more cognizant about now than I was when I began. Be very supportive. Fantastic. Yes, I heard that as well. Brilliant. Wonderful. Yep. Okay. Yep. Fabulous. Okay. Now, once they do that, I too, as the coach, can acknowledge them for the progress that they've made relative to, there's a lot going on here. And I hear the compassion that you have for your employees. I hear the resolve in to make sure that it is absolutely the safest way that it can be. I acknowledge you for your tenacity of getting really the importance of getting organized and having, probably the 100 people that are going to help you with this, this massive, migration, if you will, back to the original office. And so I can also, but it's more from the standpoint of their way of being, done this work in this last hour together. Okay, as opposed to reiterating all the different things that they just iterated. I don't need to do that, but I can talk to their image, their who-ness of who they are and who they want to be as they go through that. Also ask about learning. What have you learned about yourself today session? What have you learned? Again, 3 separate questions. Don't stack them up. I see lots of students that are going, oh my God, I've only got 3 minutes left and I talked about all the learning stuff yet. So they'll say, what did you learn about yourself or about your situation and how would you apply that in the rest of your life? So yes, that's one question, but you have 3 components that are very different. So separate those. What have you learned about yourself in the last 50 minutes? What have you, and once they've answered that, okay. And and is there anything, again, is there anything as a closed-end question? And I tend to do that when I'm pressed for time. So I just have a little, okay, whoops. Let me put a what in front of that. What have you learned about your situation in the last 15 minutes? Hear that. And based on what you've learned about yourself and based about what you've learned about your situation, where else in your life could you apply that learning? Brilliant question. What are your self commitments? What are you committing to? Okay. I could have done self-generated, self-committed, not coerced or told by me, but these are ones that they've come up with, self-generated. Could you just kind of reiterate the self-commitments that I've heard 3 or 4 of them, I think, throughout the session, but could you reiterate what you're walking away with in terms of steps for yourself? Okay, there's another way to say it. All right. Who is the client being? Who do you want to be as you're going about your doing? And partner to close the session. What this means is that I don't say, okay, so we're at 59 minutes. We need to stop here. Goodbye. I'll talk to you next time. It's not very professional. Partnering with closing the session means I'm going to ask them maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes ahead of time before the end of the session and just say, okay, excuse me. We have about 6 minutes remaining. How would you like to close the session? Is there anything else that you need to say or commit to before we close the session today? Okay. Closed-ended intentionally because I don't want to open up another whole, our hair blossom to explore because we don't have time to do that. And letting them know that we will finish on time 6 minutes from now. So that's the way the part. I am the timekeeper as the coach. The client, do not expect the client to be the timekeeper. Some of them will because they have a meeting back to back and it's a clock in their head and say, okay, I know we've only got 3 minutes left, but I just want to make sure that I share this or commit to this. Okay, keep going. But mostly the timekeeper, and let the client know The other way to close this from a partnering standpoint is, I know that you started off with objectives. It sounds like you've accomplished the first two, or one in number three, as the case may be. We probably will not have time to get into the something that you'd like to bring to our next coaching session, or would you like to have me put it on the back burner for you and remind you? Okay, we can do that. So that's the other way we can have the client not have to get through all of life in 30 minutes. It would take a piece of it. He, she, they on that over the course between now and the next session. And even then, in the next session, I'm not going to say, okay, so this was left over from the last session, so why don't we start with that? I just start looking over the agenda. I've directed the agenda. I told them what they're going to talk about, and I've taken away their choice. Not a professional coach. I can say something left over from last session, which was this. But it's your session. What would you like to accomplish in our session today? And they may pick it up, they may not. It's their prerogative. And I just need to create a space for that to happen. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Saying, what if the client is talking too much, taking too much time, elaborating what they have learned about themselves, no time for further questions. Again, you're the timekeeper, so you need to be able to say, okay, so again, we have about 3 minutes remaining. Is there any other learning that you to share about your situation from today? Okay. And you'll get a gauge for the client, because each client's going to be a little bit different. Some are very succinct, and yeah, this is what I learned, and I'm wow. Being able to say that out loud, that's really important to get that. Yeah, thank you for that question. Some clients are going to ramble. Well, let me see. What else have I learned today? And you just have to gauge that. So in the second session, you may want to start that off, it's before the ending time. You may want to start that off 8 or 9 or 10 minutes before the ending time, so that they have the time to process what they learned, steps are, what did they accomplish in this session towards their original objectives, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So some of that is just working with the client and learning how much time do they need for things. Yeah. Okay. So the session, client file and note taking, and we've got here again, I keep track of time. We have about 5 here. I love being able to demonstrate what I talked about just then. I am old school. I don't use any digital recording for my sessions or note taking. There are those available and becoming more prolific. I love handwriting. I love journaling. Personally, for being a professional coach, I use a 2-hole file folder. That's a folder that has like a 2-hole punch at the top. I take the page and kind of flip it over. Right. I have 1 page for an hour. My sessions now are an hour long. And I have 1 page of note taking. So I don't try to transcribe, word for word. There's sometimes when I'll draw diagrams, it's like a mind map. So the way this is for your purpose, by the way, not necessarily the client, supports the clients and their journey, but this is my way of reflecting back and say, okay, you mentioned that there were 3 blanks, 3 of you've talked about 1 and 2. So do you want to take time in this session to talk about 3? Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. It's like I just kind of keep track of the agenda, or important milestones or important takeaways that they want to do next. So this is going to be confidentially, keep it locked up. If there's other people in the house or have access to your computer or to your files, your paper files. I retain these for 2 or 3 rule. I don't think there's an official rule on this. And at the end of that 2 or 3 year period, I typically ask my client, because I work with clients now, right now, average about 6.5 years, for a long time. So I'll ask them, even though we're still coaching, I'll say, I'm cleaning out files from the last 2 years, 2019 and 2020. Do you want those? Do you want me to send those to you, or do you want me to shred them? Your choice. And almost always they ask me to send them FedEx, secure, secure as I can. And what they do with them, frankly, I've never asked them if they ever go back and have it, like a memorial, or if they can read my writing. That's secondary. I don't do this for them. I do it for me. 1 page of notes for the hour. I've talked about. Top of the page, I have their core values, their life purpose, their natural gifts and talents. So it's a reminder for me visually. I'm a very visual guy and processor, so I see that and I can refer back to that when during a coaching session. In the middle is sometimes just key questions, options, alternatives. There are 3 columns if, like topic number 1, topic number 2, topic number 3. I can sometimes use it that way, but mostly blank. It's just basically blank lines. And about any commitments, self-commitments that they've committed to further reflection or further action after the coaching session at the bottom. And then I have a date for that particular for my own personal records. Yeah. So that's the sheet. Simple, straightforward, nothing spectacularly complicated about it. The other thing, again, because I'm a visual guy, is I get their picture and I put that in as a, they have a special name for it, but like for legal document confidential across like the back of the page with a print on top of it.
Watermark, Peter.
Watermark. Thank you, Cello. A watermark. So if you are visual and you want an image of that client back behind your note taking, go to the watermark feature in Google Docs. I don't know if Google Docs supports that, but I know Word does. That's one. All right. So with that, are there any final burning questions? Any other burning questions that we can do in the last couple of any Q&A? Any Q's? I'm not seeing any coming through here. So I think we'll do a wrap up and get ready for next week. Thank you for your focus. Thank you for wanting to be a professional coach. Yeah. Thank you for being and wanting to be a professional coach. There's a lot that goes into it. And I so honor those of you that seriously. So please join me next week. This will be the last in series number 4, a completion session. What do you do at the end of these 3 months, 12 sessions, year, whatever that's been, contracted for? On the very last session that you're going to do a kind of put a bow tie on it and wrap it as a gift. What goes into that? What goes into the preparation of that? What goes into what you want the client to prepare for? What you want to prepare for? And what you do in that actual session? You don't want to miss that one. It's a great professional way to say, I love you, I support you, I want you to be your best. I want continued support on your own, because it's going to be your own now. You're on your own. You don't have me to talk to every other week or be part of your accountability structure. So you definitely want to get that one. You definitely want to get that. If you happen to miss that, we'll record it as we do always. And join us for Series 5. Series 5 is about mastery, exploring self-mastery. And we're going to get a deep dive into the course selfie, which is free, available to the globe. Please bring it to everywhere that you go. With that, goodbye. God bless. Namaste. Be safe.